Have you ever felt a chill in the woods, even on a warm day? That feeling like you're not just being watched, but studied? Tonight, we delve into the lost tapes of Elias Verne, a cryptozoologist who went searching for a legend and found something far more terrifying. This isn't just another Bigfoot story. This is the story of what was watching Bigfoot. The forest doesn't hide things. It keeps them waiting. Our story begins with Elias, deep in the sprawling, fog-choked woods of the Pacific Northwest. He wasn't some amateur thrill-seeker. He was a seasoned researcher, armed with vintage analog gear he trusted more than any modern tech. His cabin was a command center of obsession. Maps covered in string, plaster casts of enormous footprints, and field notes detailing strange anomalies. Not just sightings, but temporal distortions, localized magnetic spikes. He was chasing more than a myth. He was chasing a ghost in the machine of reality. On his third day, he found it. A footprint, pressed deep into the mud near a desolate ridge. It was massive, impossibly fresh. This was it, the proof he dedicated his life to. Excitement warring with a primal fear, Elias set up his perimeter. Multiple tripods, each holding a battle-scarred analog camera, formed a silent ring of observers around the clearing. He believed these old machines, free from digital interference, could capture what the modern eye might miss. He had no idea how right he was. As night fell, the forest changed. The usual chorus of insects and rustling leaves faded into an unnerving, absolute stillness. The air grew heavy, thick with a mist that swallowed sound. Elias huddled in his blind, heart pounding against his ribs, his world reduced to the small, grainy monitors connected to his cameras. Hours passed. Nothing. Then, on camera 3, a single red light blinked. Movement. Through the grainy lens, a shape materialized between the ancient trees. It was huge, a hulking humanoid silhouette, exactly as the legends described. It wasn't aggressive, just there, still patient, its massive chest rising and falling in slow, deliberate breaths. Elias zoomed in, his own breath catching in his throat. He tried to see its eyes, but they were voids, absorbing the faint moonlight with no reflection, like tiny black holes. Then, the creature did something that froze the blood in his veins. It turned its head slowly and looked directly into the camera lens. Directly at him. Just as he registered this, the frame flickered. A surge of static, a high-pitched whine. And behind the creature, something was wrong. The air itself seemed to ripple, like heat rising from asphalt, but there was no heat. It was a distortion, a faint, almost invisible shimmer. Within that shimmer, another form took shape. It was impossibly tall, slender, and almost completely translucent. It leaned forward, its posture one of intense curiosity, as if it were a biologist observing a specimen. It was studying the Bigfoot. The static surged again, a violent electronic scream. On Elias's monitor, the timestamp glitched, jumping backward by a single impossible second. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow, and he whispered the words into his recorder, his voice trembling. They were both watching me. In that moment, the entire forest seemed to vibrate, a low, resonant hum that pulsed through the ground, through the trees, and into his very bones. The second night was even stranger. Elias checked his cameras, expecting to find, well, anything. Instead, he found nothing. Every single camera had recorded the exact same frozen frame from the moment he had switched them on. The clearing, the trees, the mist, all locked in a perfect, motionless digital photograph. No time had passed on the tapes. It was as if the forest had simply paused. Unsettled, but driven by a need to understand, Elias walked into the clearing himself. The air felt wrong, thick and charged, and then he saw it. A faint shimmer, just like the one he'd seen on the tape, bent the light around his own body. He held his hand out, and a ghostly reflection of the movement appeared in mid-air beside him, delayed by a half-second. As he stared, mesmerized and horrified, a thin, vertical shape resolved itself within the shimmer. A featureless head tilted with an air of detached curiosity. It was observing his interaction with its distorted reality. Then, as silently as it appeared, it vanished. Shaken, he retreated to the cabin to review the footage from his personal handheld camera. He fast-forwarded to the moment he stepped into the clearing. On the screen, the clearing was there, the mist was there, but he wasn't. His body was completely gone. In his place, there was only a subtle ripple in the air. But as he looked closer, a dark, hulking shape was faintly visible in the background, standing right where the Bigfoot had been the night before. The entity wasn't just observing him. It was editing him out of its observation. The final frame of the tape dissolved into static, but for a split second, 2 words burned onto the screen. Observation overlaps. He knew he couldn't stay. He also knew he couldn't leave. On the third night, driven by a logic that no longer felt entirely his own, Elias climbed the high ridge overlooking the valley. The stars above weren't twinkling. They were pulsing, slow, rhythmic beacons of cold, distant light. He raised his camera one last time. As if on cue, the forest below him began to ripple, the very fabric of the landscape bending. From the distorted trees, the Bigfoot-like creature emerged, moving with a calm, deliberate grace. It seemed unafraid, resigned. And behind it, the transparent entity hovered, no longer hiding in the periphery. It was in full view, a shimmering pillar of non-space, its attention fixed entirely on the cryptid. Then, in perfect unison, they both turned. They looked up the ridge, through the darkness, and straight at Elias. The camera whined, the image bleaching out in a flash of pure white static. Just before it died, a faint, layered whisper was captured on the audio. Not indigenous, not alone. When the park rangers finally found the campsite days later, it was abandoned. Elias Thorne was gone. All they found was his camera, lying on the damp ground. The last tape was still inside. The footage ends with a single chilling shot. Elias, staring directly into his own lens. His face is calm, unnervingly serene. But as you watch, his reflection in the camera lens blinks, a fraction of a second out of sync with his actual eyes. Silence doesn't mean absence. It means you're not listening closely enough. The things we hunt in the shadows are often being hunted themselves by things from shadows we can't even comprehend. So next time you're in the wild, listen quietly. Watch closely. They are always here. Thank you for joining us on this unsettling journey. If you appreciate deep dives into the unknown, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You never know what we'll uncover next. Stay safe and keep your eyes open.